You were here last night? Okay. Did you come? Okay. It was one of the most ecstatic festivals we've had here. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa Bhagavadgitacharya Ashtotra Dada Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Bhagavadgitacharya Ashtotra Dada Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnavindra Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Hi, Hare Krishna. What's your name? Navi. Navi? I asked you to sit there. You didn't sit there. No, you can't sit there because he's sitting there. So you can move over here because that's the ladies' side. We have at least 3 or 4 more ladies coming in. Okay, Navi. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, give me a second here. We're on the last verse, right? Okay. On this 11th day of June 2018 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary, by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are on page 588. This is chapter 14, the 3 modes of material nature, text number 27. It's the last verse in the chapter. Brahmano hi patishtaham Amitasya vyayasya cha Shashvatasya cha dharmasya Sukasya kantikasya cha Brahmano hi patishtaham Amitasya vyayasya cha Shashvatasya cha dharmasya Sukasya kantikasya cha Brahmano hi pratishtaham amitasya vyayasya cha shashvatasya cha dharmasya sukasya kantikasya cha. Damodar. Brahmano hi pratishtaham amitasya vyayasya cha shashvatasya cha dharmasya sukasya kantikasya cha. Mukunda. Brahmano hi pratishtaham amitasya vyayasya cha shashvatasya cha dharmasya sukasya kantikasya cha. Go ahead, Marcy. Brahmano hi pratishtaham amitasya vyayasya cha shashvatasya cha dharmasya sukasya kantikasya cha. Would you like to try? Go ahead. Brahmano hi pratishtaham amitasya vyayasya cha shashvatasya cha dharmasya sukasya kantikasya cha. Abby, want to try it? Go ahead. Brahmano hi pratishtaham amitasya vyayasya cha shashvatasya cha dharmasya sukasya kantikasya cha. I'll read the synonyms. Brahmanaha, of the impersonal Brahma Jyoti, he certainly pratishta, the rest. I am amitasya, of the immortal, avyasya, of the imperishable, cha also shashvatasya, of the eternal, cha and dharmasya, of the constitutional position, sukasya, of happiness, I kantikasya, ultimate, cha also. Translation. Krishna says, and I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. Purport. The constitution of Brahman is immortality, imperishability, eternity, and happiness. Brahman is the beginning of transcendental realization. Paramatma, the Supersoul, is the middle, the second stage in transcendental realization. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate realization of the Absolute Truth. Therefore, both the Paramatma and the impersonal Brahman are within the Supreme Person. It is explained in the 7th chapter that material nature is the manifestation of the inferior energy of the Supreme Lord. The Lord impregnates the inferior material nature with fragments of the superior nature, and that is the spiritual touch in the material nature. When a living entity, conditioned by this material nature, begins the cultivation of spiritual knowledge, he elevates himself from the position of material existence and gradually rises up to the Brahman conception of the Supreme. This attainment of the Brahman conception of life is the first stage in self-realization. At this stage, the Brahman-realized person is transcendental to the material position, but he is not actually perfect in Brahman realization. If he wants, he can continue to stay in the Brahman position and then gradually rise up to the Paramatma realization and then to the realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are many examples of this in the Vedic literature. The 4 Kumaras were situated first in the impersonal Brahman conception of truth, but then they gradually rose to the platform of devotional service. One who cannot elevate himself beyond the impersonal conception of Brahman runs the risk of falling down. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that although a person may rise to the stage of impersonal Brahman, without going further, with no information of the Supreme Person, his intelligence is not perfectly clear. Therefore, in spite of being raised to the Brahman platform, there is the chance of falling down if one is not engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. In the Vedic language, it is also said, Raso Vaisa, Rasam Ye Vayam Labdvanandi Bhavati. When one understands the personality of Godhead, the reservoir of pleasure, Krishna, he actually becomes transcendentally blissful. Taittiriya Upanishad 271. The Supreme Lord is full in 6 opulences, and when a devotee approaches him, there is an exchange of these 6 opulences. The servant of the king enjoys on an almost equal level with the king. And so, eternal happiness, imperishable happiness, and eternal life accompany devotional service. Therefore, realization of Brahman, or eternity, or imperishability, is included in devotional service. This is already possessed by a person who is engaged in devotional service. The living entity, although Brahman by nature, has the desire to lord it over the material world, and due to this, he falls down. In his constitutional position, a living entity is above the 3 modes of material nature, but association with material nature entangles him in the different modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. Due to the association of these 3 modes, his desire to dominate the material world is there. By engagement in devotional service in full Krishna consciousness, he is immediately situated in the transcendental position, and his unlawful desire to control material nature is removed. Therefore, the position of devotional service, beginning with hearing, chanting, remembering, the prescribed 9 methods of realizing devotional service, should be practiced in the association of devotees. Gradually, by such association, by the influence of the spiritual master, one's material desire to dominate is removed, and one becomes firmly situated in the Lord's transcendental loving service. This method is prescribed from the 22nd to the last verse of this chapter. Devotional service to the Lord is very simple. One should always engage in the service of the Lord, should eat the remnants of foodstuffs offered to the deity, smell the flowers offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, see the places where the Lord had his transcendental pastimes, read of the different activities of the Lord, his reciprocation of love with his devotees, chant always the transcendental vibration Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and observe the fasting days commemorating the appearances and disappearances of the Lord and his devotees. By following such a process, one becomes completely detached from all material activities. One can thus situate himself in the Brahma Jyoti, or the different varieties of the Brahman conception, is equal to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in quality. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 14th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of the 3 modes of material nature. Om Jnana Timarandrasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So this verse goes with the previous verse, in which Krishna is describing how we can transcend the modes of nature. The modes of nature are what keep us bound in this world. In the 7th chapter, Krishna says, Daiviyesha gunamai. Excuse me. Hello. Virtual water. Daiviyesha gunamai mama maya dodatyaya mame beye papadyante maya me tang tarantite. That this material energy of mine is composed of the 3 modes of nature. Daivi, it's divine because it's connected to Krishna, who's God. So Daivi Yesha Gunamayi, made of the modes of nature, Mama Maya Duratyaya, it is mine. It is mine. It is part of my material energy. And Duratyaya, it's very difficult to cross over. In fact, it's impossible to cross over on one's own, which means that we stay bound by these modes of nature. The scenario that is described in Bhagavad Gita and other literatures like Srimad Bhagavatam is that most of the living entities who have expanded from Krishna are in the spiritual world. They never come here. We comprise, it's estimated, only 1/4. But we were once there. This is how Srila Prabhupada explains it, and this is how we understand it. And that is that our natural position, our constitutional position, as Krishna uses the word dharmasya, dharma means in our natural position. What is it given here as of the constitutional position? So our constitutional position is not to be covered by the material energy, not to be bound by the modes of nature, but to be in a transcendental state, in a state that's called the Vasudeva state, or Shuddha Sattva. Not just goodness, there's these three modes, goodness, passion, ignorance, or Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. But this is Shuddha Sattva, without any tinge of the lower modes. That's what's going on, that's the state in the spiritual world, in Vaikuntha. So that's where we started. That's our natural position. But here in this purport, this phrase is quoted from the Upanishads, Raso Vaisa, that Krishna is like, he lives for rasa. In other words, what does God like to do besides, you know, the duties, if you will, of creating this material world and coming here periodically and trying to reinstitute Dharma? But in his personal life, what he wants to do is to enjoy unlimited and eternal relationships of love with the living entities who he's expanded for that purpose. So that's why Raso Vaisaha. And we belong to that. And that what's going on there? Well, we read in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto. We read in other literatures of the daily activities in the highest abode of Vaikuntha, of the spiritual world, Krishna's world, where there's cows there, the gopis, his parents, his whole family. There's a whole world there, of which this world is a perverted reflection or distorted reflection. So everything we have here has its origin there. We have our relationships here, we have our friends, we have our lovers, we have you know, husband and wife, children, pets, you know. It's all there, in perfection. You know. So what happened is that when Krishna expands, in order to be a fruitful, loving exchange, there has to be freedom. As Prabhupada famously said, Krishna doesn't want us to love him at the point of a revolver. You see? In other words, it has to be freely given. Otherwise, it's not love, it's slavery. That doesn't please Krishna. He wants it to be freely given. So therefore, there's a certain chance it takes that we have a little freedom. And that freedom is, if we want, we can turn away from Krishna. And that's what it says. Krishna bohemukha jiv bhoga vanchakori nikatastamaya japati adhari. This is a Bengali verse in a book called the Prema Vivarta by Jagadananda Pandit. Prabhu quotes this all the time. Krishna bohemukha jiv means turning away, turning the face away from Krishna, turning our back on Krishna. It's like that's one of the offenses, right? You're supposed to turn your back and sit with your back to Krishna. You know, the Roman emperors knew that. You know, they saw it as a great offense. You turn your back. So we turned our back to Krishna and turned our face toward the external energy. We didn't want to serve anymore. We wanted to be the master. We wanted to enjoy. That's a fatal flaw, the original sin, whatever you want to call it. And by that turning away, we then become covered. Our conscience become. We forget what our real nature is. And we're given, it's a complicated process, this false ego, false sense of self as something independent of Krishna. Then that in connection or in association with the material energy, we get a material body. Prabhupada said in the 9th canto that the first body we get is one of Brahma. So we've all been Brahma. It's not that every Lord Brahma goes back to Godhead, obviously, because we're still here. So he deals with the mode of passion. He creates this world. He's the first being in this world. But obviously, many Brahmas go down. They get more conditioned. And the more we associate with these modes of nature, the more chance there is that we can become more and more covered. And that's what all the living entities, countless living entities in this world are. We're all Satchidananda. We're all Anandamaya Bhyasat, by nature full of bliss. So the Bhagavad Gita, and all the Vedic literatures that we studied, the Bhakti Shastras, are informing us of the actual situation, giving us the means of transcending, of overcoming the modes of nature, overcoming our position, becoming purified, and returning to the spiritual world. As Prabhupada famously said, going back home, back to Godhead. So these two verses are critical. They're often quoted, both of them. So 26 we read, the means of transcendence. Mam cha yo abhicharena bhakti yogena sevate. Sogunan samatichaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. That by unflinching devotional service to Krishna, Avyabhichari means without interruption and without motivation. These two. So, Bhakti Yogena, through Bhakti Yoga, the process of Bhakti Yoga, Prabhupada gives a little summary, hearing, chanting, remembering Krishna, serving, like that. Sogunan Samati Chaitan, one completely transcends the modes of nature and comes to the position of Brahman, which is the basic spiritual position, transcendental to the modes. But that's not all. And so then what is that Brahman? And here Krishna describes it. It begins with the word Brahmanohi Pratishtaham. Now that one line itself, or half a line, is very important because it is one of the several verses in the Bhagavad Gita which refutes Mayavad philosophy. It's not that Brahman is the supreme, and that when Brahman is covered a little bit, a corner of Brahman is covered by ignorance, then the Brahman manifests a form as Krishna and the other gods. That's the Mayavad thing. That the ultimate reality is impersonal Brahman, no features, nirvishesha. When we say nirvishesha shunyavadi paschata deshatarine, that Prabhupada came as a representative of his spiritual master and as Lord Chaitanya in order to save the Western lands, and through the Western lands, the whole world, from this misconception of nirvishesha and shunyavadi, the two varieties of impersonalism. Nirvishesh means no varieties. It's shorthand for the idea that the absolute truth, the ultimate reality, is the impersonal Brahman, often called the Brahma Jyoti, because it's the white light, very bright white light. You know, this is the world of darkness. That's light. But that's explained in the Bhagavatam as just the first stage of spiritual realization, of God realization. It's compared to several analogies. One is the sun. Now, everyone knows if you're not outside looking at to the east when the sun rises, and you can't be a mountain there, it has to be more or less the horizon, you won't see the actual sunrise. But you'll know that it rises because everything is getting light. We're now at almost the longest days here. We're coming to the summer solstice in the 20th or 21st, right? So, you know, those of us who go to Mangalartik at 4:30, so it's always dark at that time. But then we sit down for japa and it's already getting light. You know, it's 5 o'clock. Whereas in the wintertime, you know, 7:30, you know. So it means it's getting lighter and lighter. But we don't see the sun, we see the sun shine. So seeing the sun shine is like understanding the Brahma Jyoti. You don't know where the sun is in the sky. You know it's to the east somewhere. So then if you the sun comes up and it's like 8, 9 o'clock. So then you go outside and you look, there's the sun, the localized sun. It's in a certain place in the sky, and it's giving off all this light and heat. So that's compared to the Paramatma realization, localized. Paramatma is in the heart. So you realize Paramatma, the yogis, by meditating, and they can see the Paramatma, you see. But there's no personal relationship there, really, one of lila and rasa, you know. And oftentimes the yogis, they identify themselves with the Paramatma. It's a little risky. But it's above Brahmajyoti. But actually, if we could, go to the sun planet and enter into the sun, with obviously a different kind of body, but it's a planet, it's a place, there's a sun god, there's people there. Everything we have here, but obviously a lot hotter. And you see, you know, you can meet the sun god, the personality, the varieties. Another more maybe relatable analogy is a mountain in the distance. You see it first, you know, there's some fog, it's early morning, it's just a big mass, you don't really see any details. That's Brahmajyoti. As you approach it, you say, oh, the mountain is over there, it's not over there, it's in a certain spot, beginning to see some details of it. If you actually get onto the mountain, you can see there's some residences over there, there's some wildlife, you know, there's trees, there's people, everything. That's the detail. So, Vedantita tattavidas tattvam yajnanamadvayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdite. This is a verse in the second chapter, first canto, describing the absolute truth in these three phases according to the means of approach. And why do some people want to have it, you know, the Brahman rather than details? Because they have this idea, the Mayavadis had this idea, that a form, qualities, activities mean suffering. Because this is what we know. We know that this form, this body, this form, is obviously suffering. We look around and everybody's, not just human forms. If you have senses in this world, if you have a body composed of earth, water, fire, and the things that body made up, then you're going to suffer. That's the nature of it. Eventually the disease comes, injury is a big thing, emotional hurt, subtle, there's just all kinds of problems. So we don't want that. So don't tell me that the Absolute has a form, or that I'm going to continue a form, because that means suffering. In other words, it's the classic throwing out the baby with the bathwater. The idea of a spiritual form, eternal, full of bliss and knowledge, they don't want that. They're stuck on this idea. And that's whole Mayavad philosophy is keyed on that. And so it's built on it. But devotees don't suffer from that. We take a different knowledge source. And when we associate and hear from devotees who are Vaishnavas, who have realized the absolute truth, said no. There's such a thing as a spiritual body with spiritual senses and a completely wholesome spiritual relationship with the Supreme, who's also a person, that doesn't involve any end, it's eternal, and it doesn't involve any, as Prabhupada famously put it, inebriety. He's giving that word a new name, a new meaning. In other words, no negativity. So, Brahmano hi Pratishtam, I am the basis of the Brahman. Now, the Brahma Samhita, and if some of you are familiar, a famous verse, Yasya Prabhapa Bhavato Jagadanda Koti Koti Shrashesha Vasudhari Vabhuti Bhinnam Tad Brahma Nishkarnam Anandam Ashesha Bhutam Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. This is Lord Brahma's song that he sang at the beginning of the universe. And one of the verses describes what this Brahma Jyoti is. And he says, this is the effulgence of Govinda, whom I worship. Yasya Prabha, whose Prabha is the effulgence. Prabhavato Jagadanda Koti. And all of the countless universes and planets are manifested from that Brahman. If you recall at the beginning of the chapter, near the beginning, Krishna said, he said two verses, text 3, Mama Yoniya Maha Brahma. He used the word Brahma. Tasmin Garbham Dadamyaham Sambhavak Sarvabhutanam Tato Bhavati Bharata. The total material substance called Brahman. See, Brahman means different things. The total material substance can also be called Brahman. Is the source of birth, and it is that Brahman that I impregnate, making possible the birth of all living beings. So, Brahman is also involved in the creation, and all of the different universes manifest from that. That's what this verse is. Jagadanda Koti, millions and millions of universes. Jagadanda means the egg of the universe. It's like an egg because it has a covering, many coverings, and the amount of space in the middle is actually relatively small. So it's like an egg. Kotishu Ashesha Vasudhadi Vibhuti. Vasudha means the planets. Vibhuti Bindam. All different varieties of opulences and characteristics. Not Nirvishesh. Yeah. Vibhuti Bindam Yasya Prabhapa Vado Jagadanda Koti Koti Shrashesha Vasudhari Vibhuti Bindam Tad Brahma Nishkalam Anantamashesha Bhutam. So Brahman Nishkalam, though this Brahman is not divided. In other words, it's this one Brahma Jyoti that he's describing. And it is the effulgence of Yasya Prabha. It is Govinda's effulgence. So that's a very poetic way of saying what Krishna is saying in the verse we read for today, which is that Brahmano hi Pratishtaham. I am the basis of this Brahman. So the devotees, just like in the Upanishad, the Ishopanishad, this is one of the reasons why we have the Ishopanishad, because of this verse. Hiranmayena patrena tastyasyapi etam mukham tattvam pushana pavanus satyadhamaya drishtaye. Hiranmayena means golden. So the devotee in the Ishopanishad, it's Upanishad, he's praying, oh my dear Lord, please remove your golden effulgence so that I can see your face. Face means person. I can see your beautiful, blissful face. This devotee wants to see. The Upanishads also sometimes deal directly with the personality of Godhead. So what is this Brahman? It is Amritasya. It is the basis of immortality. It is imperishable. It is eternal. It is the constitute position of the soul, and it is the position of ultimate happiness. All of that is one little verse. So now, if one doesn't focus on the Lord, everything is taken care of. If one simply develops one's loving relation with Krishna, all the Paramatma realization and Brahman realization you need, you have. But the demigods praying to Krishna in the womb, in the second chapter of the 10th canto, in the Bhagavatam, they have the verse that Prabhupada quotes here. And that is, Krishna's in the dungeon, in the womb of Devaki. They're in the dungeon with her husband Vasudeva. And the demigods come in a subtle form. They're there and they offer these prayers, beautiful prayers. And the most famous is this one about rising up to the Brahman, but then falling down. Ye and ye adavindaksha vimukta maninas tvayashta bhavad avishuddha buddhaya. Aruha kachena parang padang tata patang tyadho anaduda yushmadangriya. So they're saying, they've been praising the devotees, and now they say, but there are others, anye, other than the lotus-eyed Lord, who are averse to serving your lotus feet. And they may think themselves liberated, because by great austerity, kritrena, severe austerities, they may, some fortunate, rise up to the Brahman platform, Brahmabhuta, which is what he described in the previous verse, Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate, meaning that they can also rise above the modes, at least temporarily. But I often say at this point, can you imagine how difficult that is? In other words, we have so many wonderful ways, just like last night. We're meditating on the Supreme Brahman in the form of beautiful Radha Giridhari. That's the ultimate Brahman. But was it was there a lot of severe austerity involved? Not at all. a lot of flower petals, but not a lot of austerity. That's the whole thing with bhakti. It's practical. Krishna comes as Lord Chaitanya to give us a means of actually connecting with Him, becoming absorbed in thought of Him, awakening our love for Him, and bypassing all of the severe austerity. There are some austerities because we're conditioned, we're rascals, and we've developed all these bad habits. But it's nothing like what these poor Mayavadis go through. Imagine trying to go, transcend the modes, okay? I mean, the modes means we're conditioned. You have certain desires, there's certain fears and anxieties, and just the whole material thing. Now, you have to, and the mind is deeply immersed in those, the pleasures and the pains, avoiding the pains and trying to go for the pleasures. You've become habituated to lifetimes. So it's not easy to overcome this conditioning. So now all you've got is, I understand that it's all Maya, it's all illusion, I can't enjoy anything. If I do, that's a fall down. So no eating nice things, no seeing beautiful things, no music and dance, forget about it. As I say in New York, forget about it. So what can you do? Talk about the Vedanta Sutra. You can you can meet together with others, like-minded souls, and describe how everything it's all illusion out there, and then what? Meditate, clench your feet, clench your teeth, and try to restrain the senses. It's practically impossible. The thing is, you can't use the senses. As soon as you see something beautiful, that's a fall down, even if it's a beautiful form of Krishna. That's their whole point. The Prapanchikataya buddhya hari sambandhi vastunak. This is a verse by Rupa Goswami describing Polgu Vairagya. See, the whole, Vairagya is a very important concept. Vairagya doesn't mean renunciation as such. It means dispassion. It means, you may be walking on the beach here. I mean, we heard some nice stories yesterday about how this temple was like, the perfect. Well, it's not the first place you would pick for a brahmacharya ashram. Three blocks from a Southern California beach, please. But there it is. That's why the ashrams of the Mayavadis, off in the Himalayas somewhere, somewhere. But here we are, and how do you stay detached, dispassionate, when you're surrounded by things that are trying to grab your senses? You actually obviously have to have an inner strength. You have to be thinking of Krishna. Your attention has to be on Krishna, who's all attractive. If you can actually become Krishna conscious, you can blow off all of these attractions. There's nothing there. It's not an austerity anymore. It's just, reality. It's just who you are. Getting to the point of that detachment requires some austerity, but it doesn't require the extreme austerity of repressing the senses and transcending. And that's why this verse from the demigods, they say, Aruha Krichena Parang Padang. Parang Padang is the supreme abode, is the Brahma Bhuta. That's the Brahman platform, transcendental platform. How to achieve it? Krichena. The very word itself. Sanskrit is such a wonderful language. They have some onomatopoeias, what it sounds like what it means. We have those in English. Splash, tinkle, we have millions of them. So Krichena is one of them in Sanskrit. It means, gritting and bearing it, very difficult austerity. So a few can rise up to Parampada, but then what happens? Patant yadho. They fall down again. Anadrida yushmarangriya, because they're averse to serving your lotus feet. When they think of the lotus feet, they think, oh, that's just Maya. We take our feet, Devotees want to drag our mind to the lotus feet, knowing that this is the secure place where you can actually cross this world. And the poor Mayavadis have to drag their mind away from the lotus feet because it's Maya. See the misconception. So Krishna is encouraging us here. This is all defeating the Mayavadis. Here, I am, Pratishta, I am the basis of the Supreme Brahman. When you understand that then all of this other stuff pertains to you. Immortality, the imperishable, eternal constitutional position, dharmasya, and sukhasya kantikasya, the highest happiness, end of happiness. So that's this verse. This chapter ends on these two important verses, and coming back again and again to the same theme, is that Bhakti Yoga is the answer. That is the theme of the Bhagavad Gita, nothing else. All these other yogas lead up to Bhakti Yoga. Just like we were studying this third chapter, I think we mentioned that we got into this thing of Jagya. I don't know how we got into that, but I was maybe I drew your attention to it. The famous verse, Yagyartad kamanoneta lokoyam kama bandhana. All activities should be done as a sacrifice for Vishnu. Otherwise, whatever else you do binds you to this world. So Prabhupada says in the purport right there in the third chapter, this is describing Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga, means all your dana, all your charity, your sacrifice, your tapasya, everything is included in a robust program of Bhakti Yoga regulation. You're sacrificing. You're sacrificing your time. That's why it's called Sankirtan Yagya. When Krishna speaks of Yagya in the 10th chapter, Yagyanam, he's giving the highest example of each thing. What does he say? Yagyanam, Japa Yagyosmi. I am the Japa Yagya of all sacrifices. So what's the big sacrifice? Time, your attention, those are the main things. So, and for Sankirtan Yagya, you have to have this key element of faith. Just like if you give, material there's so many material sacrifices. You can perform a sacrifice to Kali for good fortune, to Indra to go to heavenly planets. These are sacrifices. You may, a lot of money, pray a lot of Brahmins, a lot of ghee, all these things. Sacrificed, But what's the motive? You have faith that if I do this, I'll have a better chance of having a better life, maybe go to heaven like that, right? But in the material sphere, people are sacrificing like crazy to go to college. They end up with a big debt, right? Hoping that somehow or other they can pay it off and have a good career. It's a sacrifice, but it's not a sacrifice for Vishnu. It's a sacrifice for Maya, for something. So sacrifice, charity, penance, these are all elements of life, but they have to be done in the context of bhakti, and it's all taken care of. All right, I'll stop haranguing you. Any questions, comments? Okay. Yes, Mukunda. It's your chance. Come on. You forgot.
I know.
Bring a little pad.
We were talking about you can't, as soon as it's a fall down, as soon as you see something beautiful.
For the materialists.
For the materialists.
Yeah.
But,
or the Mayavadis.
So where does that come from? That understanding?
Well, the idea is that, in other words, if you're convinced that the ultimate reality, the supreme absolute truth, is Brahman, with no varieties, the white light, okay, then there's no scope for your interest or attachment or in a sangha involvement with anything attractive in this world, you know. And so that's why, you know, they're convinced. I mean, in my little search before, I was very fortunate to meet the devotees back in the early 70s. I got involved with the Ramakrishna mission, and famously Yatamat Tatapat. Even that, I don't know if they still have that, how famous that is anymore. But that's it. Whatever is your path, you know, you follow that, and that's it. But they're heavily toward the impersonal side. So, what do they think of the bhaktas? Yeah, okay. You all the emotional masses. You need something to focus on. Fine, you focus on Krishna. But you should know that and I'm quoting my almost guru. God be praised. That, you know, that's if you need that, you know, that's okay. In fact, I remember because I was into bhakti. There was no question. I was already chanting. Thank God, I was chanting Hare Krishna. You know, and so I said, "Well, do you have a form? Do you have some little statue or something, you know, of Krishna?" I could. Yes, up in the attic. We have a nice little statue of Krishna. So I went up there and I was chanting a couple of rounds of japa. You know, I had some beads. And then I looked. There was a single Krishna. There was no Radha. It was one of these white. I don't think it was ivory, probably alabaster or something. But it was carved. You can get them by the thousands in India. And there, Krishna was there with his flute, threefold bending form. You know. So I went a little closer and I saw like 2 inches of dust, you know, around. In other words, there's no devotion there. It was just, yeah, okay, if someone really wants to, here, you can do that. There was no faith that this is God. It was just like an aid to meditation. If you want to meditate in Indra, meditate in Indra. Kali, it doesn't matter. So that's anathema for devotees. You know, that's why, you know, one of the big offenses to the holy name is to equate the name of Krishna with any other gods. You know, no, there's God and then there's demigods. There's devas and then there's the supreme. So I came in touch with that, and he was directly telling me, yes, you know, don't get involved with those Hare Krishnas. That's for the emotional masses, you know, like that. Anyway, I escaped from that influence. Thank God. Okay, so it's 8 o'clock. We completed the chapter. Should we read Nectar of Devotion? Okay. So now, traditionally, at this point, we read either from Nectar of Devotion or Krishna book. And since it's a new week, we'll read from Nectar of Devotion. Hopefully I think we're still in the chapter delineating the benefits of bhakti. 6 of them. Okay, this isn't it. Okay. No, that was undoubtedly it. All right, it looks like we finished chapter 1 and we're going to start chapter 2, which is the first stages of devotion. So just to review the benefits of devotional service, I always remarked at this chapter because it's so skilled. It's like, you know, our acharyas and we ourselves, Prabhupada, we're really trying to sell you Krishna, present Krishna and Krishna consciousness in such a way that you will be attracted to buy it or buy into it, right? With your faith and with your activity. So that means that Krishna is meant to be presented in the most attractive way. I mean, he's inherently attractive, but he relies on his devotees to present him in such a way that people will be attracted. Just like, you know, the deity is there, he comes as a deity, but dress me up nicely, you know, and cook beautiful food so people will attract. So Rupa Goswami, you know, the towering intellect that he is, he presents the benefits first, in the first chapter, right? The first benefit, kleshagni. Kleshagni means all your misery is destroyed. Well, that sounds pretty interesting. I think I'll try that. Let me investigate. I mean, isn't a whole bunch of life trying to get rid of the miseries, right? And then, I forget the Sanskrit, but the next one is like immersion in the highest happiness, you know. So that's the other side of life, is trying to ward off the miseries and increase your happiness. So he goes, it's the only way to attract Krishna. It derides liberation, which is so, coveted and very rarely attained like that. Okay, so now we're convinced that we want to do some bhakti. Now we learn how. Chapter 2, first stages of devotion. The three categories of devotional service, which Srila Rupa Goswami describes in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, are listed as devotional service in practice, devotional service in ecstasy, and devotional service in pure love of God. So we've got sadhana bhakti, bhava bhakti, and prema bhakti. That's what he's going to describe. It's a full course. There are many subheadings in each of these categories. Generally, it is understood that in the category of devotional service in practice, there are two different qualities. Devotional service in ecstasy has 4 qualities, and devotional service in pure love of God, it has 6 qualities. These qualities will be explained by Rupa Goswami later on. In this connection, Rupa Goswami suggests that the person eligible for Krishna consciousness or devotional service can be classified by his particular taste. He says that devotional service is a continual process from one's previous life. No one can take to devotional service unless he has had some previous connection with it. Now this seems to be a catch-22, right? How do I start if I have to have some previous guy? And you go back, well, how did I start then? You go back. You know what the answer to that is? The devotee has to reach out. In other words, you do some devotional service, even unknowingly. This is where agyata sukriti comes in, where you meet a devotee is there. It's like Krishna sends his pure devotees down. So then they're canvassing for Krishna, right? And anyone who meets a devotee, or especially does some service, that's his entryway. He's entered. He or she has entered. Even if that's all you do. Just like Prabhupada had so much involvement in India before he came. He even had a disciple. I forget his name. I forget his name, but he was a Sanskrit scholar, and he had Prabhupada learn more Sanskrit. And he was actually initiated. The first devotee, Prabhupada. So, he's involved now. He must have passed away by now. So he maybe came and joined his movement. So that's how devotional service goes on. But you can't do it on your own. You need the intervention of Krishna generally through his devotees, sometimes directly, like he did with Arjuna, when he came. So that's. So for example, suppose in this life I practice devotional service to some extent, even though it is not 100% perfectly performed, whatever I have done will not be lost. Hare Krishna. Darshan, 8:15. Hare Krishna. Yeah, if you want to sit, you can sit in many chairs. You can. We'll have class for another few minutes. In my next life, so nothing is lost. In my next life, from the very point where I stop in this life, I shall begin again. In this way, there is always a continuity. For extra credit, what's the verse where Krishna says there's no loss or diminution? Damodar, neha brikkamanashosti pratyavayo navidyate. 2nd chapter. We need to know these slokas. Krishna says in this effort, there's no loss and there's no diminution. In other words, unlike material things, whatever you achieve in this life, it's all gone. You can't take it with you. But with bhakti, you do take it with you. It's unique. From the very point I stop, I shall begin again. In this way, there is always a continuity. But even if there is no continuity, if only by chance a person takes interest in a pure devotee's instruction, he can be accepted and can advance in devotional service. Anyway, for persons who have a natural taste for understanding books like the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, that's encouraging. Devotional service is easier than for those who are simply accustomed to mental speculation and argumentative processes. To support this statement, there are many authoritative assertions by the learned scholars of bygone ages. According to their general opinion, a person may become governed by certain convictions derived by his own arguments and decisions. Then another person, who may be a greater logician, will nullify these conclusions and establish another thesis. In this way, the path of argument will never be safe or conclusive. Srimad Bhagavatam recommends, therefore, that one follow in the footsteps of the authorities. So this sounds like a quote from the Mahabharata. Tarko pratishta, shutiyo vibhinna, nasa vrishir yasamatam nabinnam. So this is Bhagavad, just as he says here, argument is never conclusive. Because two people who are both in ignorance, relatively, arguing together. How can they come to the conclusion? This is Western philosophy. So tarko apratishta, by argument, you never come to a firm conclusion. And shruti of vibhinna, and if you just approach the Vedic literature on your own, there seem to be so many contradictions. You read the Vedas, and there's certain sections of the Vedas seem to be saying that Agni is supreme, Indra is supreme. You should definitely worship it for you better. But here Krishna says, just worship me. I don't know. So vibhinna, there's seeming contradiction. Nasa rishi yasama, and you can't be a famous rishi or philosopher without contradicting other rishis and philosophers. This is why we have the Western philosophers, the famous ones, the ones who won the argument, like that. So you can't reach it by that. So dharma sitatvam nihitam guhaim. We want to get to dharma. What is real dharma? What is the truth of dharma? It's hidden within the heart of the great souls. Therefore, the last line is what Prabhupada quotes here. Mahajano yena gatas sapanta. The real path is given by the great Mahajans. Hey, Hare Krishna. Please, just restrain her. She's got her own dharma going on here. So dharma siddha nihitam gahaya mahajano yena gatas sapanta. So the real path to the goal is delineated by the Mahajans, the realized souls. And that's why Srila Prabhupada, out of his great mercy, he came. He's a realized soul and gave us the truth and the books by which we can realize the path. Okay, so we're going to have to terminate 1 minute early for obvious reasons. So we'll begin there tomorrow in that chapter of the Nectar Devotion. Hare Krishna, all glories to Prabhupada. In 5 minutes or so, we'll have the arti. You're all welcome to attend. I'm sure you will.